we organized this discussion with our friends from the Female Factor. They are an international organization, but the girls are going to tell you a little bit more about it. But for now, for start, Nina and Svetlana, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you, Ivan. Hi, everyone. My name is Nina Nikolich. Born and raised in Skopje. Now the country is called North Macedonia. I'm one of the co-founders of the first and only startup association in the country, Startup Macedonia. And also I'm running the Swiss entrepreneurship program. Maybe I'm guessing that some of you have already heard, because the Swiss EP is also present here in Serbia. And I've been active in the startup ecosystem in the country, but also in the region for about 7 and 8 years now. And we were just talking with Luka earlier that I realized that the initiative that I started with a couple of my lady fellows called Womenpreneur Stories is going to turn 5 years this year. Womenpreneur Stories is an initiative that is celebrating inspiring stories of female founders of startups, but also ladies on C-level positions. It started as a platform, an event platform, but with the feedback we got from participants on these events, it turned out into a 5-day boot camp for first-time female founders, and I will give more details throughout the discussion about it.
Thank you. Svetlana?
Hello, I'm Svetlana Žikić. I'm running this small company. This is just one women-led female company. I started working in microfinance, so after that I continued with supporting entrepreneurs and small companies in different business development issues. Now I participate in some kind of EU projects and help entrepreneurs, some of them are female, how to structure their presentation pitch, how to access to funding, but not just startups, on also existing small companies when there are calls, for example, for equipment or something else. So entrepreneurship support for overall, some of them are female. In this context, they referred female factor, referred to me to talk from my experience, considering entrepreneurship, but also some kind of different access to finance possibilities, especially alternative possibilities, which are missing here in Serbia. And that is for now.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit more about the Female Factor, because it's an important organization. It's an international. A lot of amazing women are there, and they're also there not just to support startup founders, but also any women who wants to try to achieve something more in their career. So can you tell me and everyone else a little bit more about the organization itself?
Mm-hmm. So the Female Factor is now turning into a global organization. It started in Vienna, in Austria. I personally know one of the founders, Tanya. I've met her in the early Pioneers days. Maybe some of you have been to the Pioneers conference in Vienna. So we've met possibly 2015-16. And this organization basically is supporting all women, as you mentioned, with different types of programs, with different types of initiatives. Now they have opened the mentoring program, and ladies can basically apply till the end of the month on the femalefactor.com/mentoring. They can find more information about it. They have gathered a vast group of experts that can support them in different types of fields that either female founders need support, or somebody who is getting into the tech or the startup sector. So definitely check out all the available options, and they are organizing or co-organizing events similar to this one, also online webinars and workshops. So there is everything for everyone basically, so they can just check on their website what is available at the moment, and they can apply to join the network.
Yeah, it's always a big deal when you have a big international organization with many people involved, with many mentors, that you can usually find someone to help you with your specific need. It's not just general mentorship, but also you can find someone who can help you a little bit more with what you need at that particular moment. Svetlana, what's your role?
This is similar. I'm a part of the mentoring story within Female Factor. They invited me, I don't know, 2-3 years ago when they founded, but now we renewed our collaboration this summer. So there is an open call, as she said, if there are interesting female to apply until the end of September. It is open, so you can check on the website. But they also have other type of support, master class, that means some kind of coaching, training, networking, what is good. And maybe we can mention that in some last questions about networking. Female Factor is good model for networking because they have different kind of support. They support not just entrepreneurship, they support leadership. They work with individuals, female, what they need, but also with the companies, in a sense, looking for talents, branding. In that sense, I think maybe some part could be developing entrepreneurship within the companies, but also on society level, they give some support, meaning how to raise awareness and about entrepreneurship and leadership in the female population.
Thanks. Nina, so what's the state of female entrepreneurship in your ecosystem?
It's interesting because now we can actually be proud to say that we are seeing more and more female founders within the startup community, unlike, let's say, 5 or 6 years ago. And this has changed because we, not just with Startup Macedonia, but also as a community, have been working a lot on the change of mindset, first and foremost. It's been going on for so long that you have to follow a certain path, that you have to, graduate, then find a stable job or get married in the meantime, and then there's no entrepreneurship as an option, not just for female, but also for all the young people in the country. And something that we've been working on really hard and advocating for years, it's been the opportunities of entrepreneurship, the opportunities of starting your own business, and also policy and lobbying in terms of making it easier to start a company, but also to close a company because startups fail, and because at least in Macedonia it's very, very difficult, and it's time consuming and money wise as well to close a company once you fail. So there have been a lot of new incentives, new initiatives that are supporting entrepreneurship in the recent years. But also something that I'm really proud of is that there is now a support system, especially for the first-time female founders or the initial stages of starting your own business, to support them to get to in a way stable level where they can start hiring more people or even thinking of expansion, because for the female founders the most difficult part was to basically start and to have somebody to encourage them and also support them with legal advice, accounting, with also experts, as we were mentioning, on specific topics that are necessary for their business, but as well as the peer learning. So there is now a nice group of female founders who meet regularly, where they share their experiences and their pain points basically, and they learn from each other through peer learning. With Startup Macedonia, but also with SwissCP, what we see now, unlike 5 years ago, we see that female founders or co-founders are now about 40% of all the startups that we work with. So this is a really, really nice progress, unlike, let's say, 5-6 years ago, where there were 10 to 15% of female founders.
That sounds excellent. What about You, Svetlana.
If you are talking about the state here in Serbia, but also in the Balkan, I think that we are some kind in behind the European experience in terms of entrepreneurship. Things are better when we look at technology and innovation. Startups, they have support, funding, but also mentoring and other sort of supports. We can talk later about that. But some kind of support for ordinary entrepreneurship, I don't see that. Maybe for purchasing, procurement of equipment, something like that. You can take some grant or part of grant for something like that. In fact, we can look at entrepreneurship on some classical entrepreneurship, but also innovative and technology entrepreneurships. Women are more existing in that classical, let's say. But we can also look at regulation. What we have now, we have, for example, law on social entrepreneurship. That is something what is not the topic here, but maybe women can find place there. There is also, we are expecting crowdfunding law soon, but we are expecting, and
we've been expecting for at least 3 years now. Yeah.
Yes, that is some of condition. In fact, there are not so many women even in IT sector, very popular here. What is necessary is some kind of confidence, encouragement, and some kind of better conditions when you publish a call. Then maybe you can better qualify if there is one co-founder of one manager woman. That could be a measure for example. So the interest of young people is growing, definitely. I'm not sure about how many female, but interest for entrepreneurship and growing something own and launching something own is growing, definitely.
Yeah, we have every year we have some interesting options, state-funded and in some other ways as well, but somehow it all seems like it's not a systemic support, but just, one particular case because it's someone's personal agenda to follow that. So we have, for example, support for IT companies because it's a promising industry, it's a promising market where we can perhaps make a bigger impact on a larger scale, regional and global and everything. Also, last couple of years have been quite good for people who are into agriculture. They have a lot of options to find funding for getting the equipment, or maybe innovating in some way, or
mean
just
IPART fund.
For example,
Okay.
Yeah. There are options, but it's all still just case by case thing. It's not like a big systemic plan that can help grow the whole SME industry in the next decade or so.
Support could be in education also, because what I follow now, there are some kind of programs for girls, education, coaching, mentoring in some technology skills, competencies, and how to apply that afterwards on some entrepreneurship venture, let's say. But education, to have that kind of base in this high technology is necessary. So I don't see that our schools, which are technical, electronical schools, that they cooperate on that way and apply for such programs.
Yeah, I don't think
So
that
would be one
environment is
part
very supportive.
of support, that then they can teach new things and maybe to have confidence to apply for other resources.
Yeah,
and
definitely
programs.
we need mindset change, and also
Yes.
the environment is not very supportive, especially you know, in terms of mid schools, when it's question of the university, it's much different.
Also,
but especially in mid schools, it's not very supportive and accepting when it comes to girls in let's say tech or engineering or something like that. You both mentioned that there have been some good things in the past couple of years, good initiatives. Which initiatives would you point out as particularly good examples?
Well, I'm not going to be modest, so I'm going to say Womenpreneur Story is the initiative that we started. Just because of the, let's say in a way, creating this pipeline for the already existing accelerators we have in the country. They've been struggling in getting great ideas and great startups within their programs. So the whole bootcamp idea was a request from the participants of Womenpreneur Stories. We had on average 150 people, majority of them ladies, attending these events to hear and to inspiring stories, to get inspired, to get motivated. But then at the networking part, they would come back to us and they would say, you know, I have this idea, but then I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with this. This is the first obstacle I'm seeing in order to start this company. And this is why we created the 5-day bootcamp for first-time female founders to cover everything from legal, accounting, and to set up their own business and to show them that it's not that difficult in order to start their own company. The first one we did it before the pandemic in person in Skopje. And then with the opportunity we had for the time being, when webinars and online workshops were interesting for people and people were actually following and participating because we had no other option. In 2020, together I gathered partners from each country from the Balkans, so all 11 countries were included. It literally costed zero budget to organize this. And with the network of experts that we had, we organized this 5-day bootcamp for first-time female founders for all the Balkan countries. We had 250 applications for this program, and then 70 first-time female founders were accepted to go through the program. And we still keep in touch with them. We follow their work as an alumni, and I can say that about 50-something from this group are still running their business. Some of them are growing. We had great success stories from Romania, from Serbia, from participants from Greece, of course, Macedonia. So I would highlight this, let's say, initiative. There are many others in terms of country specific. There are also regional. I know one that is really, really good. Sandra also knows this. It's from my former colleague. She's organizing this group called Preduzimanje, and it's for female founders, but also for mentors. So there are great initiatives happening, and I'm just looking forward to see, you know, more and more in terms of country specific, but also regional and global. Many of these, let's say, participants or female founders are also joining the Female Factor as members. So just to see this whole community growing and learning from each other, this is something that I would highlight.
Thank you. Svetlana?
Well, I can name some initiatives here in Serbia that are just grant support, funding from Innovation Fund. Colleague is here. We have 2-3 different programs there, which is very good, and some of them are mixed with mentoring, but also StarTech, you know, for that Philip Morris, you know, EBRD Star Venture. They have mentoring, which is coaching mentoring program. I'm the mentor there. I have one Moldovan, Romanian small company. This is also very good. They're teaching them about how to access funding and etc. As for overall entrepreneurship, learning entrepreneurship skills, very good, and for innovative entrepreneurship is EIT Jumpstarter program. which is some kind of cross, they call that cross kick because that includes several EIT bodies. So there are manufacturing, food, digital, energy, health, etc. So I was cooperating in manufacturing field. They have annually a call in February usually. After that, if application is very easy. After that, they have also boot camp, which was online until now, but now they have trainings on the personal trainings on the site, and after that they will select winners. But what is good is that master students or some kind of startup teams, they can come with really just an ID. They profile ID, they will test ID, they will structure ID in a way that they will pass all steps to make at the end business plan. From pitching presentation to business plan. So that lasts some time. They have coaching, they have mentoring, and this is very good. So I could encourage all women entrepreneurs to apply that there, even though it is for all entrepreneurs. But there is, I was searching and found one program which is over the summer. This is just for female, for technology startup females on a similar way, but it is shorter, for example, 2 months. So these programs learns you, at least you test your ID and see is it worthy. And you gain some knowledge, and maybe you can get some prize at the end, and you are in the network. After that you can continue with some other programs, you can be connected to some and get some other opportunities to markets, co-founded, maybe be co-founded. They if they select you, they are not investor but co-investor. So there are other possibilities. So this is open now in Serbia, I think for the last 2-3 years, because we are accessing currently. So that's it. There are more, but this is what is now in my mind.
Yeah, we discussed previously that one of the things that we should try to encourage more is the change of mindset for women, but also for everyone else, because it's a joint venture for everyone in the ecosystem. But other than that, because that is kind of obvious, in which fields do you think women need the most support to help more of them enter this venture, and also to help more of those who decided to go that way get success in the end?
First, confidence and some kind of how to say feeling or that you are able to do that, some kind of urge to start something own. Of course, precondition is to have competence, to have knowledge about that specific field. For example, if that is artificial intelligence or 3D printing, you need to know everything about that. You need to follow trends. You need to know what are last findings. And of course, team is very important. You can't go alone. To team up with someone, to have partner. You can start with that. During the program, you can learn entrepreneurs skills and structure your ID. You will get help, but not all technology, let's say entrepreneurs, technology innovators or scientists are eager or willing to be entrepreneurs, so they can then team up with some business development person, and there are organizations that do matching. I know for one in Baltic region, but they work the whole Europe. So that is which didn't come here, but this is the good model. that they are, for example, 2 days of matching, and at the end, they are not all successful, but at the end, during the year, they say they have 10 successful companies launched on that way. So someone who doesn't want to work on entrepreneurial business issues could just go back to its laboratory or.
For many
that
founders,
is important.
In IT and tech, for many
Yes.
founders, it's a big issue here, female or male, that they have the technical background, they have the engineering knowledge, that's all fine and dandy and amazing, but in the end they lack business knowledge, and that's probably the reason why many of their products don't end up hitting the market and being a success. And that's probably one of the key reasons why we have been the outsourcing hub for so many amazing companies, but we produce so few end products that end up being successful on the global scale and global market.
Because
that
of
gap,
lack of this kind of business development person, someone who will commit, dedicate to the venture. But this is the option. On the other side, you can learn. You can learn to be an entrepreneur.
Okay, Nina, what's your view? What's your opinion? In which fields do women lack support the most?
From our experience, in the early stages, definitely where they struggle the most is not knowing. They need support in, let's say, understanding the legal part, understanding how accounting works for their business, but also something that is very crucial for them in the initial stage is to have this, as I mentioned, peer learning or sense of community. And it's different when they gather in a small group, let's say, of only female founders. They become more open to share their, struggles and get support from this group. Also, in this category, I would add the access to finance. Rarely they are aware of all the opportunities that are out there in order for them to get financial support in the early stage. And as they grow, as you mentioned before, it all comes down to having somebody on board to support them with growth or growth hacking, with go-to-market, with business development, but also investment readiness is one of the key points when they have to go through some type of workshop or training to become investment ready, or basically to know how to speak the investor's language and to be prepared when they show up and when they start raising some more serious funds.
Yeah, what we figured out during this past couple of years with the Ventu.rs is the fact that even with the successful already on the market businesses, we have a situation that they don't have basic understanding of the financing and how such a model, which is basically made to help you grow, should be used. And that's probably one of the key reasons why we had 3 successful campaigns so far, and we had at least 60, 70 meetings with companies that seem like a very good fit, but don't really get the model itself and why is it different than, for example, bank loan or something like that, which usually costs less, but it's a one-dimensional financial product, and this is not. But when you speak about accounting and legal framework and everything, it's tough for everyone. And I've been an entrepreneur for 20 plus years and in many different fields, and I still need help, which kind of tells me that might be the problem on my side as well, but also it's probably a problem within the system, and that things are a little bit more complicated than they need to be. And every time we introduce something new, first couple of months of the you know, when it's ready to go and when it's launched, first couple of months, no one knows how it works.
Yeah.
And you know that happened with new fiscalization. That's going to happen with the electronic invoicing and everything like that. That's the way things work over here, and somehow I don't think that's the ideal model if you want to support entrepreneurship, especially, you know, within SMEs where they don't really have in-house financial expert, legal expert. They have a couple of people, and best thing they can hope for is that they can have some external consultant or partner that can help them with that, but that's pretty much it.
Sometimes, you know, they also get overwhelmed with the idea that once they start their own company, they need to know everything. They need to know all the legal aspects or everything about accounting. And this is where we support them with programs like this, or we redirect them, because in the beginnings, they also don't have a lot of money to pay a lawyer or to pay an accountant. So there are, let's say, in-house services like that if they get into an accelerator. In the beginnings, there are opportunities, and here we are to actually show them what are the options available on the market for them to make the whole process easier in a way and smoother when they start a company.
Okay. Other than that, yeah, I asked you already about the initiatives. What I didn't ask is, we talked about access to finance and which options are available on the market. These things change every year pretty much, but some things have been available for the last couple of years. We have some new financial instruments, we have some new programs, we have more and more, let's say, free money available from different programs. Can you make, let's say, can you show us which of these options are available on your market and which are being used the most, either for, you know, starting up, founding a business, or helping the business grow and overcome the obstacle, especially keeping in mind that we had some pretty special tailor-made programs in the past couple of years due to the COVID and everything that it took with itself. What's the situation in North Macedonia and surrounding markets, and also what's the situation in markets where you operate, Svetlana?
I was thinking we're going to start with Serbia first.
We can start with Svetlana this time.
As for access to finance, well, we know all Serbia is bankocentric market, which means that for 20 years or all the time we go to the bank to lend the money. Now we have a law on alternative investment, some kind of alternative funding. We have a law, but that is, I don't see that is implemented. Maybe one fund, telecom.
Yeah, they started.
Yes,
TS Venture
was registered, just registered. I don't see. Probably conditions are very strong, I suppose. So the crowdfunding law is in preparation. Let's say we have a law on digital asset. Maybe is that way on some kind around to approach to funding. Which can do through tokens, then to fund. You have that possibility, but that is all not so simple. So it needs to be, you know, for study. You need to study that opportunity, and if people don't have a trust in just crowd lending, crowd investing, how they will have trust in tokens and something like that. That is more complex. So we have some this high kind of things in regulation, but we don't have ordinary alternative finance models that are not banking.
Yeah, businesses are more.
That is true. I don't know, for crowd investing, apart from Ventu, which is crowd lending, long-term crowd lending, you don't have monthly repayments. We have this one we mentioned today for for grants, crowdfunding grants, which is also important to raise funds for some social, let's say, purposes. And that is, we don't have business angel network. I don't know. I know that there is something, but it's not active. Business angels network. VC fund or something like that. This is for scale-ups, let's say, but for the beginning, business angels are quiet. They are there, but they are quiet. Maybe ICT Hub have some kind of fund, and I don't know who others.
Yeah, there are things that
if
are
we are
in the
talking
talks.
about equity funding,
Yeah.
that is opportunity when you start a business and you want a co-founder. There are not too much opportunities in the beginning. You just rely on your own resources. Bootstrap is the term. On family, friends. that is what we know.
Usually, yeah,
and grant
that's pretty much
from the
case.
state. Now, it's good that there are grants. If they recognize your idea, then you can get a grant.
There are a couple of additional options for innovation companies and
for
startups.
Innovation, just for innovation.
But
yes.
yeah, that's a very specific case with innovative.
And for equipment, like I mentioned, EU Pro Plus for local development. That is for equipment. So you have that opportunity for equipment, for example, that is 100%, not 80%, but it could be less. You must co-found.
Yeah. Okay. How about
Macedonia?
North Macedonia, yeah.
In Macedonia, well, in the program we also have a specific, it's not a full module, but where we also showcase to all the participants the financing options, especially for the initial stage. First we advise them to go with the 3Fs, the friends, families, and fools, because this is in a way the safest financing options that they can get in the beginning. They also have many opportunities in terms of competitions, different types of competitions where they can win up to, let's say, 10,000 euros. And I'm specifically mentioning this because nowadays when we see startups raising crazy amounts of money, for some it might look as a joke when they say, oh, I got a grant with 5,000 euros, what can I do? But as an example, we have the most successful e-commerce site that just exited actually twice. Nina from Gruper, she started her company with 5,000 euro grant. She won a competition for the best business model. This, yes, was 10 years ago, but still it's a great example to showcase that, especially if you work online or start an online business, you don't need a lot of money in the beginning to start. Then we have the Fund for Innovations, which was functioning extremely good. I was part of the team till June this year, but now it's a bit slow in terms of open calls and supporting especially early stage companies. But it's still functioning and it's still operating in the market, and it's an opportunity for founders to apply and get support in the initial stage. And then we have a business angel group where they can go to. They are not that active, but still they exist, and it's an option for them to try at least to get funding from that side. And we have a representation or an office of the first, in a way, regional VC fund, South Central Ventures. So there is an office in Skopje as well, where they can, once they grow, they can start pitching to South Central Ventures. But now we're also seeing cases of startups from Macedonia actually getting investors, not just from the country, but also regional and from Europe, which is a great showcase, because before, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, it was extremely difficult to attract investors to our market, especially because we are not part of the EU. They don't know the rules and regulation, and still now they are investing, but they're asking the startup to open up a I don't know, office in Estonia or in Amsterdam, or if it's a US investor, we know that everybody goes to Delaware. So there are definitely, how to say, money on the market that are available for every stage of the development of an entrepreneur, not just for female founders. Specifically for female founders, they're not those types of incentives. There is some let's say grant scheme through the Ministry of Economy, but it's more for the traditional sector.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things that we did manage to get from, IT companies and IT founders and the literature that has been circulating because of them, because of big successful IT companies, is the fact that, people are finally changing the mindset in terms of, if you want to make something, then you make something, some simpler version of it. You make an MVP, you get yourself a proof of concept that it makes sense, that it can go on the market, and then you try to go on from there. Because usually in Serbia, if you want to make, I don't know, fruit juice, the first thing you do is you build a factory.
Yeah.
And then you go on from there. And what if no one wants to drink your juice?
It doesn't taste good, for example.
In many cases, we know many people who made that kind of mistake. And finally, in the past couple of years, we've seen more and more people who simply get a good idea, develop a good recipe, then they outsource the production itself. They just do the controlling, and then do the packaging and design and everything, so that their product has been properly packed and presented, and then they do sales. And of course it's gonna have less profit, but they're gonna spend way less money in the first stages until they figure out whether that makes sense or not. If they figure out that it does make sense, if they have an Excel sheet that proves it does make sense, they can probably find the money somewhere
to build a factory.
But not something to start with. And
building,
anywhere else in the world, there is no money for the beginners who want to build factories. We have, we watch a lot of movies and TV shows, and sometimes they have amazing stories there about something like that, but these stories tend not to be true, and we tend to believe what we see on TV more than we should.
When you mentioned shows, we always recommend them to watch the Silicon Valley, the show, because it explains everything basically. That you build this amazing product, but then nobody understands how to use it, and then you figure it out, So that's something that we refer to always.
Frequently we have a situation that, especially with tech founders, that you make something and you believe it's amazing, and you
love it so much.
You love it so much, and you explain that it's amazing to everyone, but they just don't get it. And you always believe it's their problem.
That is the book Mama Test. How to test, and that
Robert
is market
Fitzpatrick,
fit. Just to check your market fit. If market accepts the product,
we
then
all
it's okay
sometimes
to
like to ask our mom what she thinks about our product, and she's probably not the best audience. Friends as well, but that's how it starts. The reason we are here today is because you are both part of a big and important network, and you both mentioned networking being a big part of this. What do you think about networking options, and what would you suggest to anyone who is interested in these topics? Where should they look for opportunities to meet people and network?
Networking is, of course, very important. I'm, let's say, networked and was networked in different, but it must be related to the area where you work. For example, when I was in microfinance, that was EMN or MFC, different networks, when we got the knowledge and exchange experience. Now that is concerning innovation EIT bodies, for example. And this female factor for the opportunity to be a mentor, of course, or EBRD for Star Venture program. That is important because you spread your possibilities to work. You learn something. I always learn from some experience, something I didn't know before. At least I change in my behavior and my attitude, something. So I learned a lot for the last, let's say, 2 years while I work on this way. So they need to find some kind of network in the space they work. If that is some kind of technology that will be, I don't know, some kind of network, association.
Yeah, conferences,
other
meetups
bodies, yes, of course, conferences.
Fairs.
Yes, fairs. If you have physical products, then you need to expose that to be seen. Now there is a help that there are joint fairs appearance at, I don't know.
Yeah, it's been
in
past
Europe
couple
or
of
somewhere
years.
else.
Due to COVID, it has been paused for let's say 2 years or something like
you
that.
don't
But
need to pay too much, but you are part of that, like it was in Dubai, for example.
yeah,
For months now, there are others.
Share the costs and
you share the costs
narrow it down
for
as
your
much as
booth,
possible.
for one booth. Yes.
Yeah. What about you?
To add on top of it, definitely networking is very important. Not just for your specific field and what you're passionate about, but also to be open to learn new things and to meet people from different, let's say, industries. Because I believe that we can all learn from each other. Something that we encourage them is to go to as many workshops or meetups as they can, but also not that to become their full-time job, so they can be present to every single event happening in the city or in the region, and to share their ideas. We still have that mindset that if I share my idea, somebody will steal it, so that's not happening. We encourage them to share their idea and to get us as much feedback as possible. These are the, I don't know, top 2 or 3 things that we give them as tips when they enter, let's say, the startup community and when they start networking, and why is it important. That's why we're here today, to meet new people, but also to learn from each other, to see old friends and collaborators. So yeah, definitely to follow everything that's going on in their city, but also to see based on their business what conference, let's say, in Europe or where they can go. It's important in order for them to, I don't know, meet investors, potential clients, etc.
One of the big deals here is the fact that you're both members of an international network, and international experience is especially important even for people on developed markets, and especially for everyone in underdeveloped markets. I remember when we started, when we were supposed to start Ventu.rs, we've been to Daniel and his colleagues in Vienna to talk a little bit more about their experience at that time, 10-year experience with crowd investing, and they helped us shorten our path by significant amount of time and mistakes, especially by sharing all the things where they made bad assumptions. It doesn't mean that everything can be directly 100% translated on our market as well, but for example, Austrian market is fairly similar in terms of, it's more relatable, of course, than UK market or US, which is 50 times bigger and with a lot higher average salary and all other things that simply influence the buying power of people and everything else. Of course, there are always differences. In our case, for example, crowd investing was also considered one way of saving money, investing, but also saving money. And we don't have a history of that over here. People The most they did in the past 15 years as a new thing was private retirement funds, which is not really investing or saving money, especially with the interest rates they offer now. But other than that, all other things have been quite unknown and new, and people were afraid. On the other side, in Austria, it has a longer tradition of decades with these things, and when new instrument comes to market, it's far more easily acceptable for everyone. It's closer to what they know already. But what we did figure out is that investors are more ready than the companies are ready to receive the investment, which was a big surprise for us, especially talking to founders who already have successful businesses that have been operating for 5, 7, 10 years.
Developed business already.
With already significant market shares and significant community and audience, and their mindset is not where it should be if they want to grow their business. We have a big problem here with what you mentioned, companies being ready to get the investment, companies being ready to being sold to someone. In many cases, when you buy a business, you buy an empty shell because it has been run by a founder, which if you eliminate from the equation, the business itself loses pretty much all the value, which is something that we need to work on more. And probably the reason for that is the fact that private entrepreneurship has been active for the last 30 years, and we had 30, 40 years before that a big discontinuation of these practices. For the end, I would like to ask you just, until we go to the questions from the audience, I would like to ask you just one more thing, and that would be, what would be your message for women who are still not sure if they should start some business of their own? If they are struggling, they are currently balancing, what would be your suggestion for them how to take a leap of faith?
Something that we've been also telling to the participants of the, let's say, womenpreneurs events in terms of encouragement was to find a program. If womenpreneurs 5-day bootcamp didn't existed, there are others that they can find program and make the time to actually get the support to, if you only have an idea, to structure your idea and to turn it into something that has a business model behind it, and to see if it's going to work out. On the other hand, when they're not sure, we're giving I'm giving an advice that it's very simple to do. It's don't ask your mom or your friends, but talk to people if they would pay for something that you're passionate about and you want to start a business. So go to an event and ask people if they would buy this glass, or if they would buy your software solution, etc. And then join a community, either locally or an international community, and get the support in terms of mentor or somebody that might also join your team. But it's, in the end, it's all about self-initiative. They can have the doubts if they should start their business, but not everyone should be an entrepreneur. Some people can do this as a side passion and maybe not even make money out of it and have a stable job. So the biggest thing is that will you regret it if you didn't start this thing that you're passionate about? Will you regret it when you're, let's say, 70 or 80 years old? And we understand that unlike, let's say, Western European countries or EU, there is no safety net for most of them, where they can just, let's say, tomorrow quit their job and say, oh, I'm starting this company because I have this backup. I don't know, the country will support me, the system will support me, or whoever. We understand that it's not as easy as in many other countries and societies, but it's in the end their personal decision, their personal motivation behind it, and we are here just to share that there are opportunities and there is a support if they decide to take the leap of faith.
Thank you. What about you, Svetlana?
Definitely, if they are thinking, seriously thinking, that they should try. They should try, firstly, gathering information about support, about the topic they are interested in. They feel passion, as you say. Of course, gaining knowledge about all of that, and try to find the appropriate program from them. For them, there are in circles. I don't know. Maybe they can wait for a few months, but there are programs to support in coaching, in mentoring, in advice, and that is definitely. If they fail, nothing. Okay, they can try something else. So yes, learning experience, and to be prepared that it's an effort, a lot of time and effort, and that you are prepared that if you are failing, nothing. You must accept that it's not disaster.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead with something else.
Thank you. Any question from the audience?
Everything is clear. Oh.
Let's go.
Okay, hi. I have one comment and one question actually. Hi, I'm Dušan from Loud Crowd Association and also founder of događaja.com crowdfunding platform. So I have one comment just to add to Nina. Speaking, actually, I'm very satisfied with the talks today, and also I can relate from our own experience to many things that you mentioned through this talk. So I would just like to add that what we're facing, considering female entrepreneurship here in Serbia, is that basically we should start thinking from the cultural point of view, because usually, and in majority cases, females are not the owners of any assets. So it all belongs to men, either husband, brother, or it comes to the mainland. So when we speak about we should start with this cultural change and then come to this point of education, and which is extremely important. But I believe from our experience that we have to start with encouragement first. And then the other thing is what we have seen from our experience is that's actually related to this factory and juice situation. Is it's a huge difference between male and female entrepreneurship, because females are usually coming with smaller amounts, up to 5,000 and even less, just to start something, and then they're thinking about, from this I will invest in this and that, and in 5 years they just succeed. And from the male point of view, it just goes, okay, I need a factory right now.
Everybody wants to have
raising
a
money first.
Yes.
So and finally, there is we have managed to establish a true crowdfunding platform, which is platform here in Serbia, which is available to all, from individuals to companies, and it's not regulated specifically, because we spend like months analyzing legal situation here in Serbia. And me personally, I was insisting on having this clear situation completely, even from the Ministry of Finance thing here, and I just got it's not regulated by one specific law, but it's not forbidden. So if you find
you can work
model,
if it's not forbidden.
so
you can find a way.
We have found a model which is completely regular. It's just not called crowdfunding, and that's all.
Maybe it's not so important that the woman is a founder, one founder. Maybe we can support and advise to make some mixed, to be a co-founder or some kind of manager, which are decision maker. What is important to say that this is female entrepreneurship, not just the occasion that this is founder. So if she's founder, that doesn't mean that she makes decisions.
Yeah.
So maybe to influence people and to teach them on that way that one co-founder and one leading manager should be a woman. In any project proposal, in any venture, and that is a plus. Maybe on that way to start to educate and to influence people.
Well, since we are facing basically the same, more or less the same issues with in cultural segment, like overall culture of the country where we live, maybe we should even think about
that is changing step by step.
Union, so we can act together, towards the same goals. And sorry if I took too much time. Just a short question for Nina, right? Beautiful learnings
Thank you.
from your side today. I'm totally in the dark when it comes to Northern Macedonia and crowdfunding. Is there any talk? Is there any campaigns? Do you have any idea? Is there any perspective at all? Or you're just talking about different funds when it comes to female?
For crowdfunding, there was one initiative, let's say one project that started. I think it was supported also by USAID at that time, or the US Embassy. It's called Let's Fund It. And it's not only for businesses, but it's also, I don't know, for art projects and stuff like that. So I think that, not sure, I think it's still functioning. Probably not that well covered within the startup community. They're not using it that much. And then, correct me if I'm wrong about the name. This is in collaboration with the stock exchanges and also with the Macedonian Chamber of Commerce, with the Croatian Founder Beam platform. So this is also an opportunity when it comes to crowdfunding. And then, you know, the regular international ones, Kickstarter and Indiegogo, they use it. The game developers use these platforms for crowdfunding. This is on the market what's available to them.
You will say that it's quite common.
You can think about entering this market, if you're interested,
I mean, there is no way that crowdfunding
if that is possible
can be profitable as a business in any way here, but as an ideology and thinking about the future and helping people by providing them opportunity to fund their idea and to gather a community, that's something else. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You.
What about your question?
Okay, Dusan also from the Innovation Council. Okay, I have just one question for you, Nina. And as I understood, you're running the Female Factor organization.
No, I'm just part. Yes.
You're just part. Okay. Can you just please tell us approximately how many female co-founders or community members you have approximately in Serbia?
In Serbia?
Approximately, because we're constantly facing female co-founders who are applying to our programs.
For Serbia, I need to check the data with the female factor.
You were telling us about the whole region.
I would need to check with the female factor about Serbia, about latest data. I know about my market for Macedonia, but for Serbia, just I can check. Yes, no worries. I will get back to you. Okay. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you so much. I'm gonna now pass the mics to Luka and the guys, and they're gonna talk a little bit more about financing startups and corporate venturing. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Firstly, I want to introduce the guys. Daniel, I know for, I think, almost 5 years. We met actually in Belgrade on, I think, Belgrade Venture Forum. And that's where the idea of maybe doing some kind of crowd investing or some sort of cooperation came from. Daniel has a lot of experience in startup ecosystem. He with his partner, founded CONDA crowd investing platform that is today active in the German-speaking area and has established itself for the last almost 10 years as one of the major players in this field in that part of the world. We'll talk about his experiences and milestones in his career later, but I think that's enough for the start. Anton, I don't know that long, but we had several very interesting conversations online. We have the great opportunity to meet in person today. He represents Pioneer, which is, you're going to say a bit more about it, but the way I see it, corporate venturing consultancy firm. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So Pioneers is basically doing this work that has to be done to connect startups, innovative companies with the corporations that want to tap into that pipeline of ideas and innovation that they are not always able to do themselves. So thank you guys for coming to Belgrade. I'll start with the question for you, Daniel, or maybe it's not really a question, it's more of an ask to give us a little bit of an insight in your experience inside the Austrian and Central European ecosystem, since I'm just going to name some milestones from your CV. Basically, as far as I know, you worked as a consultant, then you started one startup that didn't succeed. Actually, I think you said it was once you said it was a great fuck up. So I'm going to describe it in your words. Then after that you founded CONDA with Paul, your partner, and after that you also got bought by what you might call a corporation, but it was also kind of a VC investor. Then you made the whole circle back and you bought your own company back, and I think that's a lot of experience, and not many people, not even in much more developed markets, but especially in Serbia, have that much of experience. You also have international experience. You established some of the companies you established were international. One of them was Ventu.rs that we founded together. So my question for you would be, or as I said, ask to tell us a little bit more about how one goes from being a consultant into founding two startups in a market like the Austrian one.
Well, you already got some of my jokes now, so I have to rethink how to answer. Well, how to get into that? To be honest, by accident 2 times. So when it's about the first company, which happened when I was 20 years, I got asked by my co-founder. He was the tech guy and he was the software developer, and he said he has developed some awesome app, which back then we called virtual assistant. Now you would call it a chatbot, and this happened 15 years ago, which, to be honest, was too early, to be very honest. That's why I always call it a big fuck up, because we were building kind of the factory and we never asked if someone wants to taste the juice, so we just built the software. We were sitting there developing for some months and years, and at the end it turned out that nobody wanted to pay for such a virtual assistant thingy. So yeah, learned a lot. At the end it turned out that my co-founder and me went different ways. So the funny thing is that he's now working at the chatbot company where they use kind of the same technology 15 years later to do the same thing what we did 15 years ago. So something what I've learned is it's always about opportunity and timing as well. So back then it was just not the right timing, even though the technology was good. So that's something what I've learned back then, is that it's about timing, it's about team, it's about focusing on the clients and not on the technology, because even though you have the best technology, you probably can build a great fuck up. So that's one thing. And the second thing, once again, it happened by accident. So Paul, my co-founder, approached me 10 years ago at the start of the event. So also for me, networking was always one key to kind of success. And he approached me at the start of the event and said, hey, what's your plan for the next year? And I was like, I don't know. What's your plan? And he was, yeah, he won't tell me because first I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which is awesome. So trust was established at the very beginning. So I ended up signing that non-disclosure agreement where it was stated when I tell anyone I have to pay 50,000 euros. And then he told me he wants to start a crowdfunding platform 10 years ago. At that time, there was Kickstarter, Indiegogo in the US for like 2 or 3 years. There was no crowd investing at all in Europe. I had a good job. I had good salary, but I was bored. So at that time, I thought, yeah, fucking do it. So yeah, we joined forces in September 2012. We decided we're going to start CONDA. And then in January 2013, we started the company. And to be very honest, a lot of stuff what I heard before on the panel about adoption, introducing new products and everything was kind of funny for me because it sounded like 10 years ago when we started CONDA in Austria. Because when we started, everyone said, nobody needs this. Who will invest through a digital platform in Austria? Because Austrians are not super used to invest digitally into companies or anything. I think in Austria still the ratio of people investing into the stock market is below 10%. So even in the blue chips, nobody invests. So why should they invest in startups? There was no legal framework. So what we've heard before, we kind of used the same way of going through a legal situation because we just ended up in doing nothing wrong. So that was the main thing which we did, and it took us almost a year to get the legal non-approval because we did not got an approval, we just not got sued, which is a success at that time. So that was kind of a first struggle for us, and then it took us for almost a year to raise 70,000 euros with the first project, almost a year. We now do, our fastest campaign was 5 million Swiss francs in 45 minutes. So within the last 10 years, they changed something. But yeah, nevertheless, I think what I've learned, most of the stuff I've learned and which really got useful for me, I've learned 15 years ago with the first company. So the big fuck up, as you called it. For me, it was the better training for being an entrepreneur than all my university degrees, because that's just not the practical stuff you learn. The practical stuff I've learned was doing everything wrong and learned that it was wrong. I think that was the most important experience for me.
Thank you. Anton, I don't know you that well as I know Daniel, so please give us a brief introduction the way Daniel did about your experience with Pioneers. I know that Pioneers started as if I remember correctly, it was in the beginning also somehow consulting firm. Then it focused on also doing events and corporate venturing, and also venture capitalist investing. So it was a mixture of everything. But after a while, everybody was surprised that you focused only on corporate venturing, because your events were extremely popular. Even in Serbia, a lot of people went to them. So give us a brief description of how Pioneers developed and what was your part in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as you just said, Pioneers did a lot in the past, a lot of different things. We started actually with a very intrinsic motivation to help entrepreneurs succeed. This is what we've done mainly through event formats. Means basically that we invited a lot of entrepreneurs. They had the chance to pitch in front of investors, in front of corporates, strategic partners, mentors, etc. And through this, actually, we pretty soonish also made the bold move to start Pioneers Festival also in the Vienna Imperial Palace with around 3,000 participants every year. And this was also for us, and this is mainly also the thing that we are well known for, in the past, a very strong ecosystem building opportunity where we also got to know a lot of people. We helped others to get to know a lot of people. We heard that Nina also was there and met Tanya back then there. So in the end, for us also an entry gate for a lot of other stuff that came later. As you mentioned, then also Pioneers Ventures have been started with investing into startups. And also in these times, 2014, 2015, actually corporates started also approaching us and asking for help to first of all connect to the startup ecosystem, and also, as you just mentioned also in the introduction, kind of utilize the innovation power of startups for their challenges that they're having. And on the other hand, corporates also saw that there is a lot of opportunities for themselves to come up with own ventures, to build up their own startups, and also they saw that they need help for this, and this is also how we came into this topic of helping corporates on the one side collaborate with existing startups out there, but also start building up their own startups. And back then we also had a similar journey actually like Conda back then. Also we became part of the same corporation, as you want so. And also we did a management buyout 2 years ago now. And with this management buyout, it was also clear for us actually that we need to focus on something. And since we also saw that the event business was tricky at that times already, we took the decision to stop events before COVID came, so that was kind of also a lucky punch, I would say. But we also saw that especially in the corporate venturing space, you need to focus because the maturity of the corporates went pretty fast, and also they need a partner that is strong and focused in this area, and this is why we also started focusing more in this area.
Okay, great. You gave me a great gateway into the next topic, corporate venturing. It's something that we have heard about in Serbia. Sandra is here. She also did with her organization a lot of stuff in this organization in this field, but still we don't see that much of corporate venturing in Serbia as we would like to. We know that in other more developed markets it is a very important source of funding for startups, and not only funding but also getting what we call smart money. So somebody who has some skills and knowledge that you might not as a startup, but also very, very strong partners. So how does it work in Austria, and do you see maybe some potential for Serbian startups cooperating maybe with Austrian corporations, since we know that a lot of Austrian companies are present here. One of the 3 mobile phone operators in Serbia is Austrian A1. So just one example, there's a lot of them in the banking sector especially, and others too. So it is a very interesting topic for us because we see that it is something that's missing here. Maybe it would be a good idea for local startups to try approaching Austrian corporations.
Yeah, I mean maybe, and this is for us nothing similar in Austria or the German-speaking area. We just also analyzed recently the DACH corporate venture landscape in Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and also here we see that there is not that many success stories out there, right? So also for corporates, this has been a lot of failure stories in the last couple of years. And for us, corporate venturing is also mainly driven by 3, I would say, pillars that are out there. The one is classic cooperation models with existing startups. The second one is investing into startups and really also becoming part of, so to say, as a strategic investor mainly. And the third one is building your own startups. All these three are for us kind of under this umbrella topic of corporate venturing. And what we see especially in the last 2 years is that a lot of corporates that have already some years in this area, they actually now see, okay, we need to start basically from scratch or do a kind of a restart actually of what we did in the past, because there has been a lot of trial and error, and there has been a lot of low scale motivations to do so. But now they also see, if they really want to get something out of that, if you really want to become a strategic investor also into startups, because also startups have matured in their expectations of an investor, then you need to do it properly, and you also need to build really strong, powerful venturing arms. And this is, I think, also maybe an opportunity for corporates that want to start now into the space to build up on these challenges and on these learnings. Still, we also see that the ones that are starting now, sometimes you need to do this. You need to have these failure stories, especially in corporates. It's sometimes hard to convince somebody that to look into other companies and say, hey, look what they've done, and let's just copy paste what they've done and try it for our own. Not gonna work that way easily, because sometimes you need to do this learning path on your own to have the same kind of also understanding of what it should be and how it could progress.
And maybe two things to add to that, because we also, from a startup perspective, we were cooperating in the past with some like large corporates. And for example, we have a cooperation with Erste Bank in Austria, where we kind of built a model where Erste Bank and CONDA is together offering an synchronized financing model. So the bank is offering a loan and CONDA is offering crowd investing, and together it's like a perfect match for startups and small and medium enterprises. The funny thing is, I think it took us 8 years from first contact till establishing that cooperation. So I think, and at the end, the game changer from our perspective was that at some point we got CEO commitment to the whole field. And I think one of the key learnings, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the core learnings for us was, if you do not have top level commitment for everything regarding the startup thingy, it will never happen. Because we had so many people running around Erste Bank said, that's awesome. But at some point, and usually it's when it's about money and about budgets, and every time when they asked for budget, at some point at the top level, nobody gave them money. So we ended up in not going further. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, doing a startup, I can tell you, I'm not doing that for 10 years. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And also in regards of corporate venturing, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I think especially in the beginning of corporate venturing in Europe, many of the corporates thought that doing corporate venturing is a sprint, because in the next 3 years they are being super successful and they're being the new Teslas and everything just by some cooperation with startups. And I think it turned out for them as well that also corporate venturing needs time.
Yeah, thank you. Question for you. You already mentioned that you did some corporate venturing yourself, and you were a part of it still is a corporation, Startup 300. It was even listed on the stock exchange, so you did kind of become a part of a larger company, but it wasn't a typical corporation. It was more something of a VC fund than a typical corporation, and also I know that in Austria everybody knows everybody. I had the feeling when I went there, and whoever I mentioned, they know you or you know them. So it's just a very, very interesting market. Serbia is not that different. It is, but it's not that different. It's also a relatively small market, not that many people. So it is similar in a way. But I was always curious to know what was your experience with venture capitalists in your market. how did this happen? This acquisition that you experienced, when Startup 300 invested in or acquired a part of CONDA, and what does it take for a startup, in your case Austrian, but not only Austrian, what does it take for a startup maybe from Serbia to approach that ecosystem and venture capital funds from Austria that are maybe interested in investing here regionally?
Well, I think we have to start this bit earlier, because when we talk about startup funding, it usually happens in stages. So you have a seed stage, you have a post-seed stage, you have a growth stage and everything. So what we did is, I think at the end, before we sold the company, I think we had 4 funding rounds with almost 3 million euros in total funding. And the first money we got from some business angels, then we got a few other business angels on board. So step by step we raised more money. And at some point in 2016, 17, I think, we were planning to do a Series A round. At that point in time, Startup 300 was already a small shareholder of CONDA, so they invested around before. And at that stage, we signed a term sheet with a VC fund and with a second co-investor of 5 million euros. Everything was done, but at some point the Swiss family office, which said, okay, I'll invest 2.5 million euros, disappeared, which is not fun when you start raising money or when you want to raise money. So we had to find a new way on next steps for CONDA, because we wanted to grow. We also had ambitions to expand to new markets, and at that point, Startup 300 joined us in the negotiation and said, okay, we are currently building an ecosystem for startups, corporates, and everything, and we think that CONDA might fit in there quite well. And at that point, we decided for us, because we were already waiting for like 9 months already for the money from the other 2 investors, that at some point we need to find a new way for growing the company. And then we ended up in a way where we sold the whole company, but where we ended up in also being shareholders in our new owner. So we kind of moved one stage up, and at the end, CONDA was part of the Startup 300 ecosystem, let's call it like that, but we still were shareholders up there, which worked quite well for 2.5, 3 years. But at the end, like a year ago, we thought that there is more opportunity out there, and that we definitely want to grow further. And at that point, we had the opportunity that Startup 300 accepted that we need to find another structure to grow, and we ended up in buying the company back. And now CONDA is again owned to 100% by the management team of CONDA, and we are going further. So I think that's kind of the history. Talking about getting money from other, especially for Serbian startups in Austria or in other parts of the world, I think the most important thing, what I've learned comparing business angels to VCs, is that business angels usually tend to invest in their home countries, because that's the market they understand, that's the legal framework they understand. If we talk about VCs, which usually are large corporations, which usually have much more resources, if they are interested in a company, they will make it happen, no matter if the company is based in Serbia or somewhere else. Because as we heard before, at the end, even though it's a VC fund from the US, then they just found a Delaware Inc. and then they use that corporation to own the Serbian company or something. So that's usually a way how it could work. And we also see some funds from Austria, like Speed Invest and 3TS, for example, which heavily invest in the Balkans region and which have invested already huge amounts in companies from that area.
Thank you. Anton, one more question about corporate venturing. Is there some, let's say, best case or case that you would show as the best practice of corporate venturing that might be relevant to Serbian audience that you yourself took part in, where you could say, okay, this is how it is supposed to work, and if you want to, as a startup, maybe do the same thing, this is the way to do it.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't take an example where we have been involved, but I would take actually the one and only unicorn that I know in the German-speaking area that came out of a corporate venture activity, and this is About You. About You is basically e-commerce in the fashion industry, and actually founded by Otto, Otto Group, and meanwhile has a valuation, I think, of around 2 billion euros, almost I think half of the size from the valuation perspective than the mother company, than the Otto Group itself. And this is for me a benchmark, because in the end it shows pretty well how strong a corporate asset can be in such a venture activity, because Otto Group obviously in the early stages not only invested money, but also the logistics, the access to resources that they have through the history that they are in this business. But on the other side, they also made it pretty soonish possible for the founders to become strong shareholders in this venture. They also made it possible to provide external investors the opportunity to become part of this venture activity, and they also brought had access to a lot of talent through this, which brought in the end, I think, the success of it. But as we also already mentioned in the beginning, there is not that many About You cases in this area. I think mainly also because it takes time until you reach such stages. And I think the second big issue that we still see, and that's going hand in hand with our topic of financing, is that early stage, a lot of corporations, and that's similar to the story that Daniel also mentioned, early stage they have a lot of budget for such things, right? So for small pilot projects, for small proof of concepts together with startups, or do it on your own, there is always some money in a corporation. But especially in the later stages, when it comes to also growing and scaling, there is not a lot of corporations out there who have the power or want to take also the risk to do it on their own. But on the other hand, there is also just a few that managed to build up structures where they can share the risk with external investors, or they can share the risk with the founders of these companies. And that's basically also the dilemma that we are currently a little stuck in. But I also see that there is a lot of corporations that we are working with that now realized that this is the, so to say, the issue that they need to work on. And this is why we also are confident that there is a good future opportunity in this space. Yeah.
Okay, so to sum it up, basically the corporations have to treat the startups as partners to make it also not like a big brother, small brother relationship, but also treat them equally and think about the long term and the follow-ups, what comes after the first seed investment. Okay, well, thank you guys for this conversation. I would like to give an opportunity to our audience to ask further questions if there's somebody. Yeah. Dusan.
For the record, my name is Dusan also. I would like to ask a question to Daniel in terms of timing, which is quite important in matter of any success. What do you think that is going on with Ventu.rs in Serbia right now? What's the major difference between markets in Austria and in Serbia? You can see the issues.
Well, I think one thing I've learned is that it's kind of the opposite that we've experienced in Austria regarding investors, companies' perspective. So, for example, when we started in Austria, we had a lot of companies which were ready to get money and which were really well prepared to raise money. But we do not had any investors, to be very honest. So I know we had some really awesome marketing activities where we're running around the largest shopping street in Vienna and we're handing out handouts to invest in our company because we do not have any budget. So we tried everything, you know. So I think that's something what is completely different. So we had much more potential companies than investors. On the other hand side, I think what we have in common is that basically it's a culture thing. Because in Austria, we also not super used to entrepreneurship. We also not super used to being the entrepreneurial society. So that's definitely something what we have in common, and what I'm really proud of, and where I think Ventu.rs did a really great job is that they managed to get already 3 successful campaigns with also decent amount of money which got invested. So I think that's a basic level of trust which was necessary to establish a platform like this here. Nevertheless, I'm doing that for 10 years. I just recently got my first business plan out, and I think after the 30 years we already thought that we will be cash flow positive. I can tell you now that this didn't happen. It happened to take 7 years that we were cash flow positive. So for the last 3 years, we're actually earning money with the stuff which we are doing. The 7 years before, we were burning money with doing Conda. So it took much longer to get the acceptance. It took much longer to get it also on a broader range established, that it got accepted as a new way of financing, you know. So one of the main reasons why Erste Bank said for ages, no, go away, was that there was no trust for this new way of raising funds. This year we raised almost 70 million euros for companies, so 70 million euros compared to 70,000 euros in the first year, which definitely builds trust, because we have shown improvement in the last 10 years that we do not run away with your money, that we always want to find the best companies, that still it's a risky investment, but that you can earn money and that you can earn kind of good interest rates with that. So that's something which needs time. So I'm super excited for the next years of the Serbian market, because what I see and what I can tell you from like an outsider's perspective who nevertheless spent some time here, is that you have a good basis of community and also knowledge exchange. So when I look back like 10 years when we started Conda in Austria, back then it just started that someone said that they are startups and that they are investors. So compared to that point in time, there's much more happening right now here in Belgrade and all over Serbia than it happened 10 years ago in Austria. So that's definitely something which makes me positive about the future development.
Anyone else? Sandra, please.
My name is Sandra. Thank you for mentioning the events. I have a question for Anton. I'm quite passionate about these topics, about startup and collaborating and venturing in general. And it's been active, as you said, in Serbia for the last couple of years intensively. We're learning a lot. Can you share from your experience some of the big failures or success cases, both you can have them, that your agency and the pioneers in general can facilitate in terms of just collaborations, whether it's strategic in any aspect, or just pure investing in financial goals?
Sure, yeah. So I think the failure stories are way longer. The list of failure stories is way longer than the list of success stories. Yeah, I mean, that's why it's also venturing, right? I mean, venture itself per definition means risk, and means also that there is a lot of failure included into this one. And I think this was also mainly one of the earliest learnings that we had to also acknowledge, that corporates are not really risk takers, right? Especially C-level is not really interested in risk taking. And also, if you look at the horizon, if you look at the time horizons of corporate ventures and when they will bring back some return on invest, it's for C-level often not so interesting, because they're not there anymore at this point of time. And this means that, yeah, for us, we also, I think we had sometimes also to take the long run, the long way, and the long way also often meant mindset building, inspiration building, showcasing opportunities out there, what is basically possible, to even reach the status where like culture and the corporate itself is ready to start, right? And this is where actually it sometimes takes years, and you do a lot of different event formats, and sometimes it was hackathons, sometimes it was boot camps, you name it, just to get kind of visibility for the topic and get kind of also the thing running. And at a certain point of time, you also realize that that the corporation kind of also changes into the mood of, well, actually also we want to get something out of it, right? And then as soon as you've reached that status, then you also know that you basically have a quite good positioning now, that you can also start thinking bigger and also thinking long term, thinking in portfolios, thinking in also funding rounds that are longer than just the first early stage phases. And this is what we currently also see with some of our clients out there. For example, I think Strabag is a well-known European construction company that we have been working with them already for 2 years now. And they also started very early. They always had top-level commitment from the very beginning onwards, but still it took them some time to also take this risk, so to say, and to also make sure that to scale it. And meanwhile, they are doing investments into startups, so they are looking actively for startups out there in the construction space. They invested, for example, in Schüttflix, which is a logistics startup that is especially dealing with getting trucks to construction sites and ordering them basically via mobile app. They have started building their own startups, where, for example, also a venture came out that is called Team Up. They are actually in the field of labor market, yeah. So they're not really a construction business, but the problem that they saw is that they also have challenges with the labor market. They don't find people. So the idea was to staff basically one position with 2 people, job sharing basically, and then basically have this position also as a full-time position staffed. And this is now a venture that has been also developed, where there is also outside of Strabag already big corporations as clients. And yeah, they also still run like very basic collaboration formats, where they invite university startups, where they invite early stage startups to start figuring out joint opportunities. They, for example, give them the opportunity to test their solutions on construction sites. So I think this is a quite fast track that they did. They did it also within 2-3 years to be at this stage. But also they had their ups and downs. Yeah. Does it answer your question? Yeah.
Someone else?
I would ask about, did you have cases of spin-offs of corporate venturing? You organize funding on a platform. Maybe they're less risky. Did you have such cases?
Funding on a platform? I don't know any case out of
maybe Falkenstein.
I mean, Salzburg AG
might fall into that.
Yeah, I
think we
think
can talk about Salzburg AG a bit.
one nice example, which is a mixture of what both of us is doing, is a large energy producer from Austria, which is called Salzburg AG. They decided that they want to foster renewable energy, and what they created with us together is a crowd investing platform for renewable energy, where the people around the area where they are producing the electricity can invest in photovoltaic, in wind and in water power plants. And so they foster and they emphasize more acceptance of a wind turbine or a wind power plant in that area, so everyone who invests in that can participate by the interest rate. And they built it out of an corporate innovation process and decided to really run it as a platform, which they do with us together, and they successfully already raised money for two of these very local power plants, and they raised €500,000 in 2 campaigns for this one water power plant and one photovoltaic power plant in a very innovative way.
Somebody else? Okay, so let's wrap it up. Thank you guys very much for this great opportunity and great conversation. I think we heard a lot of interesting stuff and learned a lot today. Also, the ladies were great, and it was very, very interesting panel as well. So everybody else, please, we invite you to stay a bit longer, to chat a bit, to get to know the guys and among ourselves, to get to know each other better and have a drink. Thank you.
Thank you.